Breaking news! The Detroit Lions are making some unexpected moves, and I confess that I'm scratching my chin. The latest signing has generated a lot of discussion among fans and analysts. I'll tell you all the details, but first, make sure you've already hit the like button if you believe that the Detroit Lions are a great team and have the ability to reach the Super Bowl. Man, I really believe in that. Now I want to ask you a question. In your opinion, should Jared Goff continue to be the Lions' official quarterback? Comment below. I'll react to your comment. So let's get straight to the point. The Lions made a change at quarterback, and depending on how you see it, it could mean something huge for the future of this team. So let's get straight to the point. No beating around the bush. No beating around the bush. Detroit signed veteran quarterback Kyle Allen, a name that may not immediately set off alarm bells, but trust me, there's more to this than just adding another camp body. Allen, who most recently played for the Steelers, now joins the Lions quarterback room behind Jared Goff. But here's the real question. What does this mean for Hendon Hooker? Because let's be honest, this move doesn't just happen. For those wondering about Teddy Bridgewater, he's out. It's over. He's not coming back. It looks like he's headed to coaching at the high school level. That means the Lions needed to make a decision about depth behind Goff, and instead of going into the season with just Hooker and Jake Fromm, who, by the way, signed a future reserve deal, they went out and got Kyle Allen. Now let's talk about Allen for a second. The guy has been in the league since 2018, originally undrafted, at 6'3" and 215 pounds. He just turned 29 and is entering his 6th NFL season. But let's be real, he hasn't exactly been lighting up the league. Last season with the Steelers, he played in just one game, throwing for 19 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and posting a 99.4 QBR. If we dig deeper, his best season came in his sophomore year, when he started 13 games, but since then, he's bounced around the league as a backup, playing 7 games with Buffalo before his brief stint in Pittsburgh. So why bring him in? That's the million-dollar question. Is this just about depth, or does it signal something bigger? Something about Hendon Hooker's future in Detroit? Because let's not ignore the noise. There have already been rumors circulating about Hooker potentially being on the trading block, and this move only adds fuel to the fire. Look, let's break this down logically. If the Lions had full confidence in Hooker as their backup, why bring in another veteran QB? Experience. That's the key word here. Hooker, for all his potential, doesn't have real in-game regular season reps. And that's a problem. Because when you're a team like the Lions, on the verge of serious contention, you can't afford to have a backup quarterback who has never been battle-tested. That's just not how championship teams operate. And let's be clear, this isn't about Kyle Allen being some kind of savior. He's not. He doesn't have some crazy impressive resume. But what he does have is something Hooker doesn't. Actual NFL experience. That matters. Because when the season is on the line and something happens to Goff, who do you trust to step in and run the offense? A guy who has at least been on the field before, or a young quarterback still trying to get his footing? Fans are already reacting to this move, and let's just say not everyone is thrilled. If you go on social media right now, there are plenty of Lions fans asking, "What are we doing?" And honestly, I get it. This isn't the flashy signing people were hoping for. Everyone is still waiting on a pass rusher. And instead, the Lions go out and sign a quarterback who has been a career backup. It raises some eyebrows. But here's where it gets really interesting. If this move does in fact signal that the Lions are ready to move on from Hendon Hooker, then that opens up an entirely different discussion. Are they considering trading him before the draft? Are they planning to bring in another young QB down the line? Or are they simply covering their bases and giving themselves more options?
Look, I'll be honest, this move caught me off guard. I didn't expect it, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. The Lions aren't playing around. They're making calculated moves to set themselves up for success. And if that means moving on from a guy they drafted just a year ago, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, this team is in win-now mode. There's no time for experiments, no time for developmental projects. If you're not ready, they're going to find someone who is. So, now it's over to you, Lions fans. What do you think this means? Is this just a depth move, or is this the beginning of the end for Hendon Hooker in Detroit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And here's where things get even crazier, because this move isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a bigger picture, a pattern that's starting to form under Brad Holmes' leadership, a pattern that some fans are starting to question. Let's take a step back. This isn't the first time the Lions have made a move that raises eyebrows when it comes to handling player contracts and roster decisions. We've seen it before with Jamal Williams, Josh Reynolds, and now Carlton Davis. There's a clear trend forming, and if you're paying attention, it's hard to ignore. Think back to last offseason. Jamal Williams was a fan favorite. He wanted to stay in Detroit. Brad Holmes even came out and said publicly that re-signing him was a priority. But what happened? The negotiations dragged on, and Williams ultimately signed with the New Orleans Saints. And not because he wanted to leave, but because he felt disrespected by the offer he got from the Lions. His words, not mine. Now, fast forward to this offseason. Josh Reynolds, another guy who played a key role in Detroit's offense, is gone. Another player who was reportedly a priority, but when it came time to put pen to paper, something didn't add up. And again, there were rumblings that the offer he received wasn't what he expected. Sound familiar? And now we have Carlton Davis. The Lions trade for him, bring him in, and he plays well. But then, when the time comes to lock him up long-term, he ends up in New England. And what does he say at his Patriots press conference? That he wanted to be somewhere where he felt appreciated and like a priority. Are you seeing the pattern yet? Because I sure am. Brad Holmes has done a lot of great things for this franchise. No one can deny that. He's made some brilliant draft picks. He's built a competitive roster, and the Lions are in the best position they've been in for years. But when it comes to handling veteran contracts, there's a clear strategy at play. He's willing to let guys walk rather than overpay. Now, some fans might be totally fine with that. Maybe you're someone who trusts the process and believes that upgrading through the draft and smart trades is the way to go. And that's fair. But others might look at this and start wondering if Detroit is building a reputation for lowballing players. And if that's the case, what kind of impact does that have in the long run? Because here's the thing, this isn't just about the players who have already left. It's about the message it sends to the guys still in the locker room. If you're on this team right now, and you see players like Williams, Reynolds, and Davis all feeling undervalued when contract talks come up, what does that tell you about your future here? And that brings us right back to the Kyle Allen signing. Because if this is, in fact, the beginning of the end for Hendon Hooker in Detroit, then it's just another example of the Lions moving on from a player before we ever really got to see what he could do. And maybe that's the right decision. Maybe Hooker isn't the guy they thought he was when they drafted him. But it does make you wonder, how many more times is this going to happen before we start really questioning the philosophy at play here? Look, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm just laying out the facts. The Lions have built a winner, but they're doing it their way. And part of that means being ruthless when it comes to contracts. So now, the question is, do you agree with this approach? Do you trust Brad Holmes' vision, even if it means losing players you love? Or do you think the Lions are playing a dangerous game by continuously letting talent walk out the door? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, go Lions. And here's one more thing to think about. How will this strategy impact future free agents? Because the NFL is a business, but relationships matter. If players around the league start seeing Detroit as a team that consistently underbids or lets guys walk despite calling them a priority, will that make top-tier talent hesitant to sign here? Right now, winning cures everything, but what happens if things take a turn? Will this front office adjust, or will they stick to their guns no matter what? Drop your thoughts below. Go Lions!